When breaking down a whole bird, every cut you're going to make is going to be, there's going to be a crease on the bird. So it will pretty much show you everywhere you need to cut on the bird. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to remove the wings. So you're just going to follow the creases. So you're just hold the wing and use that bird as dead weight. Follow that crease. Now you'll see this joint will separate. You're going to be careful because right underneath the wing is the top of the breast, and you don't want to cut into the breast. So what you're going to do once you get that joint separated is lay your knife flat against the bird and then follow this crease underneath here, and that will separate the wing from the bird. And you'll have a wing. You do the same thing on this side. Use that bird as dead weight. Cut up and towards the wing. And you have two wings. The next thing we'll do is separate the quarters off the bird. So a quarter is just a thigh and a drumstick. So you just want to separate it out. This first cut is going to be in this crease. That's just going to be skin. So you just cut through the skin. If you get a little tail there, you can just pull it off. So then you're going to take the quarter and bend it back towards the spine of the bird, and you'll see that this joint will separate. Now when you cut the quarter off the bird, you don't want to cut straight down. You'll see this little muscle right here. It'll be the oyster muscle. You're going to want to pick that up. So when you cut, you'll go in towards the spine, you'll pick that up, and then you'll come down and follow that crease down to the tail of the bird. You'll see once we get it off, this will have like a ridge in it. Just follow down this to the tail. So you'll see this ridge in here, how it's got a little swoop to it. That'll be your oyster right there. So if that was on the bird, you picked up all that whole muscle. We're gonna do the same thing on the other side. First cut, just skin. Just separate that skin. Fold that quarter back. That joint will pop out. Same thing, you go down into the spine. You'll come up over that cartilage right there. You guys can see right in there. So you'll separate that joint, go right back towards the tail. So sometimes when you do this, because you're getting all the meat off the bird, you'll pick up a little bit of cartilage right here. I just take my knife and go right in there and just clean that off. So the next thing you want to do is separate the breast and tenders. So you're going to remove the skin off the breast. The only place the skin is attached is along the keel here. So you'll just cut this little piece of skin, just peel the skin back, and you'll see where it's attached, right on the center of the bird. So if you just slip your thumb in there, and just push the thumb down, it'll separate the skin. And then you'll have both your breasts exposed. So right along here again, there's another ridge. You'll see that line. That's where you're going to make the cut that'll separate the connective tissue of the breast. So underneath the breast is the tenders. So you'll just take your thumb and stick it in between the breast and the tender, and then just run that down to the back of the bird. And that'll separate. This will be your breast. This will be your tender underneath here. So to get the breast off, you're going to follow from this where your wing was attached and cut right into the crotch of the chest here, and there's the wishbone will be right there. So your knife will ride right along the wishbone, and you'll see that wishbone's exposed there. So you can continue this cut down the keel of the bird to remove the breast. I like to leave the breast attached, move to the other side, do the same thing, separate that connective tissue. Run your thumb down. This will separate the breast from the bird. That'll be your tender. Same thing, right at the arm where the wing would come off. Just ride your knife right along the wishbone. So once you get there, your breasts are only attached at the keel. Same thing, there's a line either side of that. So I'll just take my knife and cut straight down. That'll separate the breast. One breast. And it's okay if you cut from the corner of your wishbone, if you cut too, you can't cut too deep, because all you're doing is just separating that tender, which we'll do after we get this breast off. Understand? So there's your two breasts. So in order to get the tenders out, there's connective tissue. So the keel, where the wishbone stops and the keel starts, there's a connective tissue in there. So when you remove the tenders, there's no bone in there. It's just connective tissue. So you'll want to make a cross. So you'll bring your knife from the left side down to the right side of the keel. And then on the opposite side, you'll bring your knife from the right side down to the left side of the keel. So you'll make that cross, and that will cut that connective tissue in there. And then you just pull that back with your fingers. The one tender, same thing on this side, and just pull it back. That'll be two. And you can see there's no bone in there. It's just connected with tissue. So then you'll have a back. If you want to save the back, you can save the back of the bird, the neck. When you go to your wings, so you'll have obviously 2 wings per bird. I remove the wing tip. It has a sharp, pointy piece on here, and the bags do not like it. So to remove that, same thing, you're gonna cut right in this joint of the wing. So you'll just take the wing and just spread it out in your hand. Just cut straight down through that joint. So that'll be one wing. Same thing with the other. Just cut right through that joint. And then if you want to keep quarters, you can keep quarters. If you want drumsticks and thighs, the only thing you have to do is, I like to hold the thigh side because I prefer the skin on the thigh. Hold the thigh, and same thing. You'll see there's a line right through that drumstick. So if you hold your thigh, start in that notch right there, and just cut straight down, you'll have a thigh and a drumstick. And you can do the same for the other side. So you'll just hold your thigh right in that crotch right there, just cut straight down. The only thing you'll cut through is cartilage. You shouldn't be cutting through any bone. So then you'll have 2 thighs, 2 drumsticks, 2 breasts, 2 tenders, 2 wings, and a back. And that will be your full bird breakdown. So a couple things you might see. These birds sometimes will get a little beat up, and some bones will break. So this would be an example of that. So as you can tell, this is a clean quarter. This piece, when I separated this joint did not come apart. So it actually tore along the spine. So this would be, you'd want to remove this. So it's nothing, you want to make sure you get the bone out of there. So all you want to do is just ride your knife alongside the bottom of that. And then you can stick it underneath there and cut that out. So then you can do the same thing, is you just roll this joint backwards, and that'll separate. And then just cut the tissue off there. You would do that when you were cutting the quarter off the bird, but sometimes this little bone will come with it. So you want to make sure there's no bone on that side so that it looks the same. Another thing that will happen is that this wing, when it separates from the bird, sometimes it's attached to the breast. So sometimes it will not take the tissue from the breast. So you'll have a hard piece of cartilage inside the breast. So what I like to do is, when I get this far on the bird and I realize that cartilage is still on the breast, you're going to do the same thing you did before, only you're going to start from the breast side and just cut down where you see that white. Follow that down, and then you can see you removed all that cartilage from the breast, so that'll stay with the bird. And then same thing, follow that on the wishbone down. You can see the same thing on this side where that cartilage has stayed with the breast. So you're just going to do the same thing, cut your connective tissues right along that line. Separate your breast from your tender. Sometimes you gotta separate a little bit so you don't tear the breast. See, this is even a better example. You can see the full joint is still stuck to the breast. So the same thing, you're just going to want to start your knife in this crease right here and just cut along. So then that cartilage will pull away from the breast. Cut right along there. And then same thing, follow your wishbone to the keel. And that's how you will remove that. You can also remove it once it's off the bird if you want to take the breast right off. But it is much easier when you have the bird to work against to keep that cartilage on the bird. So same thing, you'll just continue on and take off your breasts. So one thing you'll run across if you process any number of birds is in this tender, you might find something that looks like this. So what this technically is deep pectoral myopathy, if you want to look that up. So pretty much what happens is this tender was restricted. You can almost see how this one has a nice straight line on it and how this one has an arch in it. So this muscle was restricted. So it actually started to break down a hemoglobin in here. That's what you're seeing. It looks like a bruise. Sometimes this entire tendon or tender will be almost green. That's another name for it. They call it green muscles disease. So if you were to actually peel this back a little bit, you can see that it's very fibrous and see it's got a green hue to it. It's not a pathogen, so it's just from this muscle being restricted. Technically, they say that this would be safe to eat. It just isn't aesthetically pleasing. We discard all of these that have the green muscle disease. But if you have a good tender, like on this side, this one's still perfectly fine. So we'll actually just separate it. This tender will stay on the bird and get discarded, and then we'll keep this tender.